episode of the Adventure Jogger is brought to you by Kimmy Maltempo, the Joyful Runner, and Dean, and of course, all the rest of our Patreon supporters, and you, of course, the listener. Thanks for listening. The Adventure Jogger, a podcast about trail and ultra running. Meet fascinating runners from the front, middle, and back of the pack, sharing inspiring and funny stories about life and running. Running should be fun, and so should running podcasts. I'm your host, Steven Kornhaus, and this is the Adventure Jogger. Well, today's guest on the Adventure Jogger podcast is coming to us from Canada, and super excited to have Morgan Schick on the podcast. Morgan, I first saw Morgan on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel called A Few Mo Minutes, and what caught my eye was the way his videos were entertaining, not just like a trail running video, but his personality and the way the humor he put into his videos was pretty darn awesome. And my wife watched a few with me too, and we both enjoyed it. So
I'm glad you.
Yeah, Morgan, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to keep them entertaining. There's so many trail running videos you'll see where it's just some bad techno music and it shows the whole trail and nothing happens. So I try to turn each one into a little story if I can and make it humorous. It's got to be. If you're not being entertained, then what's
yeah. And it's great, yeah. The way you did it. I'm curious, like, from a creator perspective, do you plan a lot of like what you're going to do for that specific video ahead of time, or is it just...
No? So once in a while I'll have maybe an idea of mine, but no, I just go, I record tons of footage, and then at the end when I get home, I go through all the clips and I literally write a little description of every single clip, which for the hundreds it's a lot of clips, and then I start thinking as I'm watching the clips of what I want to talk about and stuff. Like, okay, certain ones, if I know, like Bighorn, where I injured my shin halfway through, I figured that was kind of going to be the storyline for that one because there's no way around that. But the other shorter ones where I've made some jokes about how I was trying to beat last year's time and stuff like that, I kind of come up with that on the fly when I'm watching the footage after.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't, if anyone out there has not checked out his YouTube channel, definitely go check it out. A Few Mo Minutes on YouTube. He's got some good race videos and some.
Yeah, I got to get more out. I don't do it very frequently, so I have a race I did near the end of last year too, actually, that are still in the can. I got to put out there. So
yeah, I think the last video you did was
Ironstone.
Yeah, Ironstone 100K. That's right.
Yeah, well, not 100K for me. But will be next year. But yeah, that was a disaster. Jeez.
Oh, man.
It adds to the story when stuff like that happens anyway. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially, if we have a good, like when you hurt your shin, or for me when I rolled my ankle in No Business or whatever, people can relate to that on the video, and it helps it a little bit. Yeah,
I was watching one guy's talking about making videos once, and how he said he doesn't like to show when he's feeling down and stuff like that in the low points, but you need to. You gotta have ups and downs during the race. Everyone does. You don't want to just see all positive the whole time, and that's a fairy tale.
I agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I show the worst moments because that's what everybody goes through, those lows, and that's one of the beautiful things of ultra running is you have these lows and you get in and then you find a way out of it and you have that high, and
you need to see that.
Yeah, people can relate to that. Yeah, exactly. So
I forget to film, honestly, sometimes when stuff like that's going on, because filming isn't my priority while I'm there. It's just getting the race done. And like if you saw Bighorn, there was way more footage during the first half than the second half because I was so in pain and pissed off, and I almost forgot to record a lot of the time, actually. So anyway, I never know for sure until the race is done whether I'm even going to have something to post later.
So. Right. Yeah. No, that's totally true. Because when you're running a big race, like, 100 mile or 100K, whatever it is, even a 50K.
Yeah.
It's like, the race is the priority and you want to film it. But at the same time, it's like you want to do the race.
Well, exactly. There's a few shorter races I've done where the race director saw some of my videos and they asked me to come and do the race and they'll give me entry. So for those, I got to make sure I get the footage. But on the other ones I'm doing on my own, then it's less pressure and I just film whatever I want. And then
I was gonna say, do you find that creates more pressure for you as a creator versus a runner when somebody asks you to come film specifically for the race?
A little bit, not much. It was kind of a low key race and I know the director and stuff, but still, then I have to worry about making sure I don't screw up and the battery dies or things like that happen or my camera doesn't work. Because then you gotta get creative with the editing. And one race I tried to record the finish line, and when I got there, I realized it didn't record it. So then I edited in some clips from a previous loop that made it look like I was at the finish, and then I recorded after the finish, but just not crossing the line. So yeah,
Right.
you got to get creative with the editing sometimes.
Definitely.
But it's fun. I
Definitely.
think I have more fun doing the editing than I do filming things, because there's a lot of pre and post stuff I need to film later, like dialogue and talking about the race and stuff.
Right.
I actually don't enjoy doing that. I enjoy the editing process later, taking all the clips and having fun and adding music, and that's always a big part of it. I try and time the clips to the music, and so it all fits together. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun to make. Yeah,
It's a good process. Yeah, I enjoy it as well. And, I hope there's a lot of people out there that get some enjoyment, entertainment out of watching, your videos, my videos, any creators' videos out there. It's, certainly in the trail running world, it's nice. I've watched so many videos in preparation for a race. Like, I want to see some footage of this race, and it's helped me as a runner, just kind of get, if I can't travel out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to make sure that I include enough that people can use it as a tool when they're going to do the race as well, for sure. Which is actually, when I say that some of these tech videos with techno music where they just show the whole course, they can be really handy though when you want to do some course research and see it, right?
Right.
Maybe it's not as entertaining, but when you're watching it, for course information, then it's all there.
Definitely.
So everyone has a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, let's dive into kind of your story. Like, how did you find running, or when did you start running? Were you like, a middle school track guy, or when did you start running?
I hated running. Jeez. I've always played soccer. I played rec soccer since I was like 6 years old. So I've always done that. So I always ran a little bit on the side, but barely at all. I hated distance running. We used to cheat in high school, and there was a stream that we ran past. We would go hide there and splash it on our face so it looked like we were sweating, and then head back to the school. But no, I've always played soccer. I've always been a sprinter, really, and one of the faster guys on the team. So distance running's always been hard for me. It still is, and so which actually makes hills and things like that, I think, a bit easier for me. And then it's the long distance and the flats when I do poorly. But yeah, I never got into running until mid 30s, almost mid to late 30s.
Okay.
And I think I was, like I said, I ran casually once in a while. It was a few minutes around my neighborhood. What really actually started it was when I got my first iPod. I got a little iPod, well, it wasn't the Shuffle, the Nano, the little
The Nano, yeah.
And I went for a 4K run, I still remember, and with music playing in my ear the whole time. I loved it. So then 2 days later, I went for a 6K run. Then that weekend, we were going up to a cottage, and I did 10K, and I'd never run that far before. This is great. The next day, I did 12K, and then by then I guess I was hooked. So then I started researching running a little bit more and learning how to, ramp up properly. So then I started to do it. I should have slowed down a bit because I wound up injuring myself. But right from then, the next week I did 15K, and then 16 and a half, and then 18K, and then 21, 25, 30, 35. And these are almost consecutive weekends that I'd never really been into running. And then I wrecked my IT band and had to take some time off. So
of course, yeah.
Learned my lesson. But yeah, back then it was all roads. Never even thought of going on a trail. Wow. I used to plan my road runs on Google Maps, make sure there were no hills. Now I do the opposite, right? And yeah, I just got into road running, I guess. And then I did a half marathon while I was on vacation in the Cayman Islands. That was the first race I ever did. And yeah, and I had fun. So the next year I decided I was going to do a marathon. And so I wound up doing the local, where I live in Mississauga, did the Mississauga Marathon. And so that was the first longer race I'd ever done. And yeah, it went well. I'd been training for like a year to do it. And so by then I was 35. And I thought, I'll do this marathon and see, maybe one day I could get to Boston. Let me just see how this goes, and then I'll gauge whether that's even possible. Then when I got to the halfway point, I realized I was ahead of the Boston pace. And so I just kept pushing it. And so my first marathon, I wound up qualifying for Boston.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So then my second marathon was Boston. And so that's all. After that, I got into trail running. I did a 50K right before Boston, the fall before that. I did a 50K because I wanted to just try and go farther. I didn't know anyone. I just signed up by myself. Yeah, trail 50K. Okay. It was 2 25K loops. And what a difference from running a marathon. Like, I met so many awesome people that I'm still in touch with. And that was, 2009. Wow. And yeah, it's a great community up here in Ontario. And so I had a great time at the 50K. So then the next spring I did Boston. Right after that, a few weeks later, I did a 50 mile. And then that whole summer I started doing a bunch of 50 miles and 50Ks and stuff. And I was hooked.
Wow.
And,
that's awesome.
I loved the trails. Yeah.
So you really have Steve Jobs to thanks for getting you into
I
running with
think
that
so.
iPad. Yeah.
It was just a different experience. I used to get so bored on a run, and all of a sudden I'm listening to all these like old 80s songs I haven't heard in years and stuff, and I got them all in this little box. So yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
was
awesome.
made a difference, honestly. So yeah,
Now, are you still a runner that listens to music when you run on the trails?
rarely. No, not really.
Okay.
Podcasts sometimes, but a lot of the time it's nothing. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've never have in races. I did when I first started running and got it. The first 100 I did, I brought music along, but I noticed I just kept turning it off because when you're passing people, I'd always want to be able to hear them. And so I put it away. And so I never really got into, never at races. I never would bring it along anymore.
Yeah.
The only time we did was actually Fat Dog. I put a few movies on there. Not like the audio, like it was the audio version of the movie. I
Okay.
just downloaded the audio track from the movie. And yeah,
Interesting.
one climb. That's got some huge climbs. That one. I listened to the entire movie of Interstellar on one climb, and so that's a good distraction. Just listening to movies and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no,
I
for the
missed
most
the
part,
audiobook.
yeah, no. I thought about doing an audiobooks actually, and I remember before I got an iPod, I remember I tried to carry a Discman while I was running one day with an audiobook. It didn't work. It just kept skipping and stuff.
Did you have
But
the anti-shake where you have to like hold it super still?
I did. I had it in the backpack and it wasn't working, so I tried to carry it, and that still didn't work.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a good distraction, I guess. But yeah, I find I don't always need it. Sometimes doing monotonous runs around the neighborhood, bring it along, listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you had the iPod Nano and listened to some music, started running, but do you remember what made you want to go out and do that first 4 mile run or 4K run? I think you said, was it, just decided to go
trying to get shape back then. So in my early 30s, I did a lot of weightlifting and not much running.
Okay.
But because I was still playing soccer, I would still go, like I said, this little run around the neighborhood twice a week.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I don't know what made me go out for the 4K. I think it's because I had the music and I just, at that time, maybe just wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah.
I would have had at that time a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so, yeah, I just started getting out and running a lot more. And once I got on the trails, then yeah, and I just wanted to get out there.
Wow.
But,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, you want to just be out there in nature and get a little break. Absolutely.
No, it's great. I was loving it. Jeez.
Well, how many kids do you have now? Still the
three.
Three. Okay.
Yeah, 22, 20, and 10. You got a 10-year gap in there.
Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The older ones are at university, and then the little ones grade 5. So yeah, a bit of a gap. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you did that first 50K before Boston. How soon before Boston was it?
It was the fall. So Boston was in April, so it was in the fall. So I actually planned to do a 50K. It was a 50K ultra, but it was on, again, I hadn't done any trails yet. It was all on a paved path back in summer. And I couldn't because I was coaching both my kids' soccer teams, and they both wound up having games that day. So I couldn't do the ultra that I wanted to. So the next day, I actually went out and did 50K by myself on the roads.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it didn't go well. I cramped up horribly. But I would just carry a Gatorade in my hand back then. I didn't even have hydration with me. And anyway, but I loved it. I knew I wanted to start trying to go farther. And so I knew I was going to kind of get into it. And that's when I saw this 50K in the fall. And yeah, when you do your first 50K back then, I was, get nutrition dialed in all week and sleep and rest and everything. And yeah, now I probably should pay more attention to that stuff because I don't at all. But yeah, but no, I enjoyed the 50K. And then it was the next year I did like 7 races when I really got into it.
What year was that first 50K?
Fall of 2009.
Okay, so wow, so you've been ultra running for a while then, 2009.
Yeah, so that would have been 16 years ago, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Just over that. Yeah.
So, do you remember what shoes were you wearing? I'm curious what shoes back, in 2009.
Road shoes.
Road shoes on the trail. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first 50. So that one I had road shoes. And then when I did my first 50 mile, which was in the spring, I was wearing road shoes. It was it was all trail, but there was a few gravel sections, and the trail was like packed dirt. There was one barely technical section to go down, and so had it rained, maybe it would have been a problem. But no, I just had road shoes, and then so what I did was I think I bought a pair of trail shoes. I found these Nike, I think they were called Nike Alvords on clearance. at this running store. I didn't know what I wanted to wear. And
Yeah.
then so I wore those all summer for all the trail races. And then once I decided I wanted to start doing more serious races and get into hundreds, that's when I switched to still probably my favorite shoe, Mountain Masochists, Montrails. And oh,
Never tried those.
they don't exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
But they were great. But when I was going to do my first 100, what I did was I didn't know what shoe to buy. So I looked at, well, who won the race last year? And that was actually, it was Hurt. Gary Robbins had won the year before. So I thought I'll just pick the same shoes he used. And I wound up going through like 7 pairs of those over the next few years until they discontinued.
What shoe was it?
The Montrail Mountain Masochist.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the. I'm sorry. What shoes was it that Goggins wore? Was that the shoe?
Oh no, not Goggins. Gary Robbins.
Oh, not Gary Robbins. Sorry.
Yeah, that was the shoe he was wearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I just bought the same shoe, and it was great. They're tough and durable, and I bought one pair that's waterproof for the winter. Okay. So I only wear that in deep snow, and so that's 14 years old now. They're still like brand new. So I only wear.
You're still wearing them?
Only in the snow. Yeah.
Wow.
So I only wear those really, maybe a few times every winter when it's really deep snow. And other than that, so those are like brand new. So I still cycle through some of the old pairs once in a while for fun. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. Compared to a lot of this cushion shoes today, maybe they're not as comfortable, but they were so tough. They were great.
Yeah. Way more durable. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So then you said that next year you did 7 races. Were those 7 races, were those all ultra trail races?
Yeah. So that year, 2010, I did Boston in the spring. The next race was 50 mile. So then what happened was I did a few 50Ks and stuff. And it was all, again, this is all in Ontario. I'm meeting all these people. They're all the same people at all these races. So it was great. And then I started looking at longer races. And so the farthest I'd gone is 50 miles. And I was looking at Hurt in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Which is, obviously a crazy tough race. And then probably no way I could do it. But I looked and there's a lottery. And so I thought, oh, what the hell? I'll just throw my name in. I think I had a few beers before I did that in front of the computer. And I thought, what are the odds I'm going to get in anyway? And so to get into that, you get, I think they were called Keuke nuts. I forget what they called them exactly. But when you can get extra points, basically. So if you volunteer at the race, things like that. And one of the ways to get extra points for the lottery is when you apply, you need to add a story, like your running story, about why you want to do it and stuff like that. I thought, okay, I'm good at writing stuff. I couldn't find where to submit it. So eventually I just gave up. I just submitted my name and my age and sent it. And so anyway, I thought if I'm going to start doing hundreds, I need to probably run at night sometime. So I signed up for a 24-hour race that summer.
Oh, cool.
And they were actually doing the lottery in Hawaii at 6 p.m., which is midnight here, during that 24-hour race. So I did the 24-hour race, and then I found out in the morning when I finished the race that I actually got into Hurt.
Oh, wow.
And so I bought a headlamp for that race. So I'd never run at night before that race. And so I signed up for 100. There's a local one called Haliburton in Ontario here, which is a popular 100-miler in September. I signed up for it. But then again, both my kids made it to their soccer final, which was that weekend.
Oh,
so I had to pull out out of Haliburton. So then Hurt was going to be in January, was going to be my first 100-miler.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a first 100-miler too.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's a tough one.
I still don't think I've ever trained as much for any other races I did for that one. And so
really?
So yeah, I went and that was in January. And so that still feels like a 2010 race because you're training all of 2010 for it. And then 2 weeks into the next year is when it takes place, right?
Yeah.
So
so you said you did that 24-hour race. How many miles did you get in the 24-hour?
I did 130 kilometers.
Okay.
So for that race, they give you a buckle if you go over 120. So that's about 80 something miles.
Yeah. Something like that. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. 120 is around 75 miles. So give or take. Yeah. 80.
Yeah. Okay.
Miles. Yeah. I could have squeezed out a bit more and I kind of wish I had. I had a runner kind of join me like as just a pacer for fun near the end. And they kind of told me to stop. I had 45 minutes left, but my feet were bleeding. They were in so much pain. I'd never run anywhere near that far before. And the way they do it is every 2.5 kilometers, it's a 10K loop you're doing. Every 2.5 kilometers, they mark you. And I had 45 more minutes. So I'm thinking I could go a bit more. And then the runner I was with kind of convinced me, there's no point in, you just stop now. So I thought, I've had enough. Anyway, I wound up tying like 5 other people for 130 kilometers. I wound up in 8th place. Had I just gone another 2.5 kilometers, I would have finished in 3rd place overall.
Oh,
So I
wow.
kind of wish I did that in hindsight, but anyway, but no, I was a fun race. It's a 10K loop, really hilly, and you get back to your bag every 10K. And,
Yeah.
but that was the first time I'd ever run at night, so that was quite an experience. Jeez.
Wow. Now I'm curious, did that runner who paced you a little bit, did they ever pace you again after
No.
that? Yeah.
No, no, that was it. But no, no, I actually never run with a pacer. That was the only time I think I'd ever actually had a pacer at any race. And so,
Okay.
no, I never do. I like to, I don't know, there's something about doing these on my own that I like. And so
So since then, you still do them without pacers now?
I've never had a pacer. Yeah, other than that,
Okay.
yeah, and that was
Awesome.
just more of a friend joining me for the fun run.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, no, maybe, perhaps eventually when I get into hard rock, then maybe a pacer for that one. But
Yeah.
no,
So,
any of the races I've done, I never have. No.
okay. Awesome. Well, how did that first night run go for you? I mean, was this, you said it was a 10K loop? Was it,
Yep.
Single track trail
Yep.
or?
All single
Okay.
track, windy trail. There was no, almost no flat sections, no roads, no gravel. It was all hilly trail. Really nice course actually for a 10K.
Yeah. Well, what do you remember about that first night run? The first time you're running in the dark.
I remember getting cold and shivering in the middle of the night, and it wasn't even that cold, but you get the shivers when I'm just dehydrated and hungry, and I didn't know what I was doing still, so I brought way too much food and a bunch of stuff that sounds good ahead of time, and then once you try to eat it during the race, it's not as appealing. And
Right.
so, and I didn't, I didn't bring warm enough clothes, so I had my Boston Marathon jacket in the car that I just had been wearing casually, and I needed a coat in the middle of the night. So I looked kind of cocky. I had someone run to my car and get it.
Right.
So I did the last half of the race wearing my Boston Marathon jacket. So yeah,
Oh,
but
that's hilarious.
yeah, I hadn't dressed properly. The shoes I was wearing at the time, I think I tied them way too tight because what hurt most was the tops of my feet got all cut up from the laces.
Oh, wow.
And so, and I also learned those probably weren't the best shoes to be wearing. They were, again, just some clearance Nikes I found off the rack.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, other than that, learning to run at night, I mean, it wasn't a real technical course. It was hilly and windy, but I noticed you need to slow down a bit at night and, there's more walking portions on the hills and things, but I didn't find that one to be that much different at night.
Okay. Well, then you also said that, leading up to the Hurt 100, that you did the most training you've ever done. Like what was your peak week like leading up to Hurt?
Excuse me. I think I had a couple 100K weeks, and
Okay.
which is way higher than what I normally do.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Another problem is I got really bad shin splints at a race in October, probably from those Nikes maybe. That was the last time I wore them. And so there was a period where I couldn't really run. I was in so much pain, so I just hit the hills. And that actually, for Hurt, though, that turned out to be totally beneficial. So I talked to another runner, and she gave me a really good tip about do as many stairs and hills as you can. But when you're doing the stairs, always take them two at a time. And so I still do that to this day when I go to take stairs, because there's a lot of big, rocks and steps as you're going up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite a bit of mileage. And then it's hard to train because winter hit and there was some bad snow days and things like that. And so, it's a good way to simulate the mud you get at Hurt, I guess, but
Sure.
much colder.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did Hurt go for you? Your first 100 on a very, very technical course. I mean,
Yeah.
the pictures I've seen, the videos, just
It's crazy.
ridiculous amount of routes out
The
there.
routes are just nuts. It went well. I mean, I was so how old was I then? That was 2010. So I was 36.
Okay.
So I was in great shape for it. I got ready. I was still almost in like fast road running shape because I just done Boston that year. And so, I mean, over the years, I really slowed down after doing lots of long hilly trails and stuff. But back then,
Yeah.
I could go. And so there's a few other runners that I knew who were also there. And so they basically, I kind of ran with them for the first little while. And one of them told me, as long as you keep the loops under 6 hours, you should be okay. And so I think the first one I did in 5.5 and was feeling great. So I actually kind of went ahead and left some of the people that had been kind of running with behind. And sorry, I'm still getting over my cold here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know it's that time of year.
But no, I remember thinking, I don't know how people do this multiple times. A lot of the runners there had done it many years in a row. I don't know how. I was thinking I wanted to quit forever during loop 4. And, excuse me. But it got really hot and a lot of people dropped on loop 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because when there's one part where we were just out on an exposed ridge for a while. A lot of it's got a lot of cover, but there's one part on an exposed ridge, and I know a lot of people loop to mid-afternoon wound up dropping out.
Oh man.
But no, I remember loop 4 was the longest. I think that loop took me 8 hours, 8.5 hours. And then, so by the time I finished loop 4, then I was fighting cutoffs, but not too bad. I knew as long as I kept going, I was going to finish, which felt great. But I still had another, they're 20-mile loops.
Yeah.
So I still had another 20 miles to go.
Oh man.
And so another runner who wound up stopping, their husband kind of crewed for me and met me at some of the stations on the final loop. That was great. So he kept moving me and getting me out.
Nice.
And then on the final, so there's 2 aid stations and then the finish. And after the second aid station, I remember I forgot to drink anything while I was there. And so, and that's happened to me again at a race recently. And so I filled up my bottles, but I wound up drinking them right away. So during that final stretch, I totally ran out of water, still with ways to go to the finish. So I used my last bit of water to down a bunch of salt pills and electrolyte pills. And then, great feeling. Once you know you're getting near the end, you hear the cowbell, everything else. It was a great feeling coming up to the end. And
but you
know when I'm going to finish. Yeah,
you finished and got that buckle. And let's see here. According to Ultra Sign Up, you finished in 35 hours and 17 minutes, which is pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, cutoff was 36.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough great. Trying to drive back to my hotel after that, and I got lost. And
oh my goodness.
I slept for, I think, 13 hours. And that was the weirdest sleep of my life. I'd never been as exhausted. Even in all past hundreds, I'd never been as exhausted as I was after that. I really pushed myself. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, soaking wet, like somebody had poured a bucket on me. And then I roll over to the other side of the bed. A few hours later, again, I woke up and I'd never experienced that before and since.
Interesting.
It was really weird. I felt bad for the hotel staff. It's going to look like someone poured water all over the bed. Jeez. But so no, at least I was there. I was in Hawaii for a couple of days, and some of the other runners, they were going up to the North Shore the next day. They asked if I want to come along. I said no, I couldn't move. I hauled down to the beach, which was 2 blocks away. It took me half an hour to get to the beach, and were just really bad blisters on my feet too, and so sore. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, I'm guessing you were in those Montrail shoes for that
the whole time. Yeah, back then I would never take my shoes off for anything. So all the clothes and shoes that I was wearing at the start, I was wearing at the finish, and I didn't change anything. And so when I took them off at the end, they were, my feet were not pretty. Jeez, it was mainly on loop 4. There's a water crossing, and there's a rope you can grab and some rocks you step across, so it's easy to do. And I was skipping the rope and just jumping the rocks. And when I got to loop 4, I guess I didn't have the same pop in my legs. I jumped and missed the rock and went right into the creek. And that was when blisters started after that. So prior to that, I was doing okay.
Yeah. But, after her, according to Ultra Sign Up, you've done a lot of races, quite a few hundreds. But I kind of want
11. I think.
Wow.
1100s now. Yeah. 50 something total, including all the 50Ks.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to skip ahead a couple of years to 2013, because I see you did Western States in 2013.
I did. Yep.
Yeah.
So I put my name in the second year in a row, and I got in on my second try.
Wow. And that's 2013. That's really before a lot of the big documentaries came out, and that race got incredibly popular. I mean, that was still...
I think Unbreakable had just come out.
Yeah.
That was 2012, I think, with Anton and Jeff Rose and Gillian.
Yeah.
And Hal Corner. And so I think that had just come out just before that, but around then anyway. But that was quite an experience. Jeez, I was so happy to get into that. And didn't go well. I finished it, but another runner who'd done it before, he told me, once you get to the top of the hill at the beginning, the next 20 miles or so.
Up the escarpment?
Yep.
Okay.
He said, go ahead and just gun it, because you can make up time, because it's a net downhill for a while.
Right.
And I guess I listened to that a bit too much, and I ran way too hard, and I fell in some water early on, just a small little water crossing, and I remember slipping and got my feet soaked early on, and I wound up with, again, really, really bad blisters at this race. This was probably the worst ever that I'd had for blisters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was also injured going into it, because I'd run there's this race out here called Sulphur Springs. It's 20K loops, and I'd gone out just to run on the course that was back in February, and the whole thing was ice. And so wasn't wearing spikes, and so my legs are getting pulled apart. I strained my adductors really bad. That took a year to heal. And so when I went to Western, they were still in massive pain. And so trying to sidestep was killing me, and then going down hills was really bad. So I would go really slow, gingerly down the hills. I couldn't run, and people would pass me. I'd have to keep stepping to the side, and sidestepping was what hurt more than anything. And then once I got to the uphills, then I was passing everyone on the uphills who just passed me, and we weren't complaining about it. So we just keep leapfrogging like that. But it was really hot. That was the second hottest year on record for Western in 2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been beaten since, but the canyons were like well over 100 degrees. It was so hot. And so I wound up lying down in a river, partly because I brought a bottle to spray myself down with, an extra bottle that I used to always do, and which really helped in the heat. But what I didn't realize, I was getting swarmed by bees. They didn't put water in it. It was an electrolyte drink.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Started swarming me. So when I got to the bottom of one of the canyons, I had to jump in the river and fully submerge myself to wash it off. Yeah, which felt great though. It was so cool. But anyway, so that helped. It was nice and cool. Yeah. So every water, any creek, I would lie down in it, soak my hat and stuff if it was a creek, but just to stay cool.
I'm curious, did you wear, like, I know a lot of people talk about, typically you don't wear cotton, but at Western States, you want to wear cotton shirts because it holds the moisture in and keeps you a little bit cooler.
Oh,
did you run in cotton, or were you in like a high performance type shirt?
I just honestly, I wore a race shirt from one of the Ontario races. Just just this white race shirt. It was comfy. But what I did wear, and I bought it at the race actually at Western, was a pair of white sleeves, and I've worn that ever since. So they're really thin, and they just keep the sun off of you. But I was also, with my bottle, I was constantly spraying them down, so they're all wet. So that really helped to keep me cool as well.
Did you ever have ice down inside of them at all either?
No, I probably could have actually, but no, I just kept spraying them. So I literally, during the hot sections, I kept an extra bottle not to drink, just to keep spraying myself with.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it worked. It kept me cool. So even though it was super hot, I never really had really bad effects from the heat that day. Just because I kept submerging myself in the creeks and stuff too.
Right.
I mean,
I know that was 2013, so we're at 12 years ago. But do you remember, like, what was your favorite part of the Western States course?
Probably, I like the canyons actually. I enjoy the hills, and maybe because, like I said, I'm decent on the hills and passing people and stuff. But that Cal Street, so after Forest Hill, should have been more fun. But I was in really bad shape. My feet were done, and that was all in the dark. And so if you can hit that in the light, that's a fun section, because it's again downhill and you're moving.
Yeah.
But no, even just once you get to the top of the escarpment and then it's a net downhill, when I was still feeling okay and running hard, that was for that race, that was probably my favorite part.
Yeah. And then looking at Ultra Sign Up, it shows you were a golden hour finisher, 29:23.
I was just happy to finish. My God.
Yeah. Well, what was that experience like when you saw the Platter High track and you got on the track? Like, what did that feel like?
Oh, some dude ruined it for me. I'd always had this like, get to the finish, I'm just gonna put my head down and sprint around the track as hard as I could. I did that a lot of my races. I would run at the end. Right. So when I get just inside the gate, I'm on the track. There's a guy 50 feet in front of me, maybe, and his wife and kids have joined him, and he's going along slowly. I'm like, I can't sprint past the guy. So I just waddled through to the end and took my time. But so yeah, no, it was a great feeling. Even just once you get into town and you know you're going to finish, I pushed myself and ran through the whole town, never walked. I just wanted to get there.
Yeah.
And, it's a great feeling. As soon as you know you're done. It was actually, maybe that was my favorite part of the race. No Hands Bridge. When I got that, looked at the time, I literally screamed like a big woo, because that's when I knew I was going to finish.
Because from No Hands, it's only like a 5K, isn't it? To the
something like that, yeah. And it's uphill, but I mean, I was just on fire at that point. I ran most of it, even though it was uphill, coming up to Roby Point and on. I was running the uphill the whole way through the town. I just wanted to get it done at that point. So yeah, that's
so awesome.
Yeah. So I still need to go back and get a better time, but my original plan was hoping for 24 hours, which is why I was running so hard at the beginning. But once I the injuries set in and slowed me down, and the blisters were the worst part, and dead quads on the downhills, I was done. So I was happy to finish that one.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, were you surprised? I hear a lot of people that actually go run states are kind of
Mhm.
surprised at how the downhill is what gets them. Like, everybody
Yeah.
they look at that 18,000 feet of elevation gain and they train for elevation, but they don't, some people don't realize there's like 22,000 feet of descent.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
And it beats those quads up. And especially if you had sore adductors coming into it,
Yeah.
that had to have been brutal.
No, that's the only race where I've ever had really bad dead quads from downhills. I've done other races where I went too hard on the uphills and I couldn't go uphill anymore. But excuse me.
Yeah, those
That one,
downhills.
it was the exact opposite. I literally couldn't run downhill for the last half of the race. I had to meander down every hill. And so, yeah, my quads were just dead. And it was from running way too hard at the beginning. And so I took that guy's advice a little too strongly, I guess. But it was a good plan for the first 20 miles, maybe. But
right.
yeah, beyond that.
You buckle. You got the finish. You got the buckle.
In the end, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
My wife wanted to finisher.
Head home and like, no, I got to wait because they'll mail you your buckle. I'm like, no, we're waiting. It was so hot in that afternoon, but we waited. And then, yeah, funny thing there was all of my lights. I had 3 different lights. I put them all in one drop bag. That's the only drop bag that wasn't returned.
Oh, no. Oh, man, that's horrible.
All my lights were gone. Yeah. Got all my dirty socks, things like that back. But
yeah, but not the expensive lights. Oh, man. Well, after states, it looks like you did a couple of 50 milers, but then like the next 100 was Wasatch in 2015.
Yeah, that was great.
Another pretty difficult race.
Yeah, and there was 5 of us from Ontario going, and in the end, only 2 of us wound up going. Some of them were doing the Grand Slam, and they got eliminated earlier, and Wasatch was the final race of the Grand Slam. But that was the first race where I ever experienced really bad nausea. It's
really,
yeah, I'm still not sure why, but it's a great race. At the beginning, you're running through. To get to the first big hill, it's so dusty. Someone warned me about that. There's just red dust just kicking up everywhere. You can't see anything from all the other runners. And then once you get up to the top of the first climb, that was the first time I bought some poles for that race. I'd never used poles before. And I wound up pulling them out, and then we were at the top, and I didn't need that, but they came in handy later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, for that one, you're running basically along the top of the ridge, 8,000-9,000 a lot of the time, and it's so sunny, and I got pretty bad sunburn. But and then once you head down into the second half, then yeah, the temperature plummets, and then the high point I wound up reaching at dawn, which is once you get through the ski resort and up to the highest peak, which is around 11,000, and the sun's coming up, and yeah, that's one thing that messes with you at that one is the finish, which is at what's called Soldier's Hollow. You're running along these really hot ridges. This is the next day, and you can see the finish, but you're still 12 miles away through this crazy heat. Oh man. So, and then the very end was punishing because you go run along the edge of this reservoir, and it's all gravel trail for almost 10K. And you just want to get it done. And so I wound up running the whole 10K at the end. A lot of people by then are walking, their families have joined them and stuff, but I wanted to get it over with at that point. But yeah, earlier on in the race, I had to stop for a while. I had really bad nausea. And so for that race, they actually show you're in and out of each aid station. So after the race, I looked at the stats and added it up. I'd spent 5 hours at aid stations because I was feeling happy. Yeah. And so I was finishing in, that one was a good 34 hours.
Yep, 34 hours, 3 minutes. Yeah.
Shit,
you had 5 hours in aid station. Man.
Yeah. Just feeling nauseous. It was early on, just nausea. And so not a fun feeling. But
I'm curious too, though, like since you spent so much time at aid station, your stomach was feeling bad. Like you strike me as the kind of, just looking at the races that you've done on Ultra Sign Up and the little bit I know about you from YouTube or Instagram, you seem like the type of person that you purposely seek out hard things, hard races, challenging, elevation type things. So I'm curious, when you had this nausea, this issue that would cause a lot of people to probably, possibly drop out. Like, did that enter your mind at all? Like, I could just quit and be done? Or were you like in the mindset where you were just like, didn't even cross your mind?
Not at all. Not when I'm flying in there I'm paid for this race and everything.
Right.
No, I don't think I've ever had it never crosses my mind. I'm always there to get it done. And I now, maybe from experience, I know it's always temporary. No matter how crappy you feel, it's temporary. The only question, which is what happened at Ironstone to me last summer, is whether you have enough time to recover.
Yeah.
But a race like that, Like when I was feeling sick, it was pretty early on in the race still. I knew I had lots of time. And they were, so I basically just rested in a tent. I had a bunch of popsicles because it might have been partly heat stroke, actually. I was
Yeah.
really, really hot there. And there was exposure to the sun. There was no clouds, and you're up, for hours on end running along these ridges, totally exposed.
At pretty high altitude.
Yeah. So that might have been what did it. But
it's interesting that it could have been heat, if Western States didn't give you problems. Because I know, like you said, the Canyons was well over 100. It's lower altitude, I imagine, than Wasatch.
Yep. I think the difference with Western was it really fluctuated because the canyons got hot, and then you'd come out of the canyons and you'd be in the woods for a while, and having literally those rivers to lie down in. I immersed myself in a few of them, and so that really cools you down. And so, and then which was it? Devil's Thumb. They basically soak you in these ice cold sponges and give you popsicles and stuff. So they do a good job at Western of keeping you cool.
Yeah.
There was one kid who had a fan he sprayed with water, but it was hot. By the time it hits you, it was hot water.
Yeah.
It was nice of them though. But yeah, maybe that was the difference. This was just, Wasatch was just exposed heat, and not as hot, but almost. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any snow on the course at Wasatch?
Nope. No.
Okay.
It was at Western, the first climb when you get to the top.
Yeah.
Not much. I don't think it was actually on the trail. It was off to the sides.
Okay.
So it wasn't an issue.
I know a race. I did a race that was at pretty high altitude in Idaho, the Beaverhead 100K, and I remember, we were up at 10,000 feet, and it wasn't that hot. It was probably 75 degrees, but it felt super hot. And I kept taking snow and putting it under my hat, my shirt, my vest, and like cooling down that way. But I guess if Wasatch didn't have snow, it's not going to help. So
no. I try to grab ice and do that. I put it in my hat and wherever I can. But whenever it's a race with snow, for sure. Put it in your hat, put it wherever you can. It really helps.
Right.
It's just keeping your core temperature down. Jesus.
Yes.
People sometimes, I think, even overhydrate. It's not the hydration. You want to stay hydrated, don't get me wrong. But filling yourself up on too much water doesn't help you. It's
and too much electrolytes too. Yeah.
It dilutes your electrolytes big time. It'll lead to cramping. So
absolutely.
No, it's the core temperature. That's the key.
Yeah. No. Well, after Wasatch, which you finished, and the next big race, which I think to this point, this looks like this would have been your furthest distance, was the Fat Dog 120 in 2016.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Fat Dog 122.5 that year. They had to reroute going up to this area called Heather. They had to reroute the course that year. Okay. And so it was 122.5, so a little longer. But yeah, that was a little daunting. I wasn't trained as well as I should have been for it. But being 120, that was pretty daunting. And those are, if you look at the profile, especially back then, again, the course has changed since then, but there was 3 climbs that were about 4,500 each.
Oh, wow.
And so the scary one for me was there's one at mile 99, you come to an aid station, and then there's a massive climb about 4,500 feet up. And so what I did for that race, I literally convinced myself it was just a 100-miler. I just had to get to that aid station. So forget what happens after that. All I got to do is just another 100, just get to that aid station. And then when I get there, I'll deal with what else I have to do.
Right.
So that's basically what I did. When I got to that aid station, then in mile 99, then you have a big climb up. It's 20 miles to the finish. So it's a big climb up for a few miles, and it's along the top of these ridges, which had it been in the day would have been majestic, but the Skyline Trail, it's called. And then you drop down at the end, down and finish at this lake. And so once I got to that mile 99, then I just grabbed some food, and then I didn't sleep. That one took me 43 hours, and I didn't nap or sleep the whole time. And then when I got to the finish, and then I had a good nap after that. But it worked. I honestly convinced myself that it was just another 100, and then I'll deal with the final 20 miles when I get there, which is when I get. We can talk about Outlaw after. That's kind of what my mindset's going to be at Outlaws. Yeah. But
what did you notice anything after running? Up to this point, I'm not sure how many, but probably around 500 miles, 4 or 500 mile races before you got to the Fat Dog 120. Mm-hmm. Did you notice anything different about that extra 20 miles running 122.5 versus 100 or 102?
Not really. What I really noticed was more the fatigue from being up that long.
Yeah,
I think that at that point I'd never done. I mean, I'd had a few. Hurt was 35 hours. That was probably the longest. I had a few 34 and 35 hour races I'd done at that point. And so being up that long, I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to. And it's because it's 2 nights. It starts at 10 a.m. on Friday, and I finished 5:30 a.m. ish on Sunday. So you're up 2 nights.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second night I was started to get a little woozy at aid stations and stuff, but so I could have napped for a while. Maybe I would have felt better, but I just wanted to get it done, so I just kept going. But
did you use any caffeine?
I had coffee at aid stations. I didn't have caffeine pills, but yeah, for sure at aid stations I would grab some coffee. Yeah.
Wow. 43 hours too. My goodness. And that's just the race time. Is like, so you were probably awake. I mean, I assume you probably woke up at, wow.
Yeah, ish. Yeah, the hard part was I was staying with my aunt and uncle after the race, which was 3 hours away. So I had to I napped in the car for a little while.
Oh man.
And, I tried to drive from the race finish, still in the park that it's in. The showers are near the other end of the park. And so I drove from there, but you start hallucinating a little. The trees look like they were kind of folding in on the road. So probably not a good idea. I just napped for a little while. And then, even driving back, I just napped a few hours and then I drove a bit and then napped a while longer. And it's being up that long is not normal.
Right. No, that's a long time. I mean, it's especially doing something so difficult for that long. I mean, your body, like you said, that fatigue, that exhaustion is just, it's next level.
Yeah.
I never did a race in the 40s. Like I did a 48-hour race, but I only made it 36 before my leg completely locked up on me.
Yeah.
So I never got the pleasure of going into the 40-hour plus range and seeing what that was like.
It's different. Yeah. It's just the fatigue, staying awake. But and with the trail races, obviously changing terrain constantly, up and then down, and twisting. I think doing like a flat race that far would be tougher.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's for sure. I could see that because you don't have that time to, walk those 4,500 foot climbs basically, or
let these muscles relax while the other ones are working, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, then again, you continue on with more 50Ks, 50 milers, and then you did Grindstone 2 years in a row, the 100-mile distance, Cruel Jewel. Now that's a tough one. Now you mentioned briefly Hard Rock, so I'm assuming all this time you're trying to get Hard Rock qualifiers, and obviously Cruel Jewel.
I have been in the Hard Rock lottery 9 times.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. This past year, because I wound up getting injured and deferring a couple of races, I didn't have a qualifier a couple months ago for the lottery. That's the first lottery I've missed since 2013.
Oh, wow.
And so next time when I finally, this year will be Hellbender will be my qualifier. I'll have about a 75% chance of getting in.
Oh, man.
I better get in next time. But yeah, no, that's like you said, you notice these races, it's all mountainous races and stuff.
Yeah.
My goal every year is to make sure I get a Hard Rock qualifier, which are good for 2 years if you miss one.
Okay.
And then if I get a Western qualifier, great. But the priority is just maintaining the Hard Rock qualifier.
Yeah. Yeah, because Cruel Jewel, that's, what is it, like 33,000 feet of elevation gain?
31.
31,
so
okay.
That one, geez, that took me longer than I meant it to. That's 41 hours.
Yeah, that's also a longer race too, isn't it? Like 106 miles?
106 miles, yeah.
Yeah.
So that took 41 hours for that, which a little slower. I was hoping to get under 40, but that one I did almost a little experiment leading up to that. I did a running streak for that one, doing minimum 5K a day. Okay. And so I go longer on weekends and then a longer few days during the week. And so for that one, I started running Christmas Day, and then the race was in May. And so I ran every day for 146 days in the end.
Oh, wow.
So I had my long runs, maybe not as many long runs as I probably should, but just the consistency from running every day is what paid off for that one.
Yeah, that fatigue that you build up, because streaking can definitely, especially if you're doing more than just like a mile a day, it can certainly put a lot of fatigue into your body, and running on that, I could see being pretty beneficial. Yeah, as long as you don't get injured.
That's the thing. Yeah, getting injured. If you're going to get injured, then pull the plug. But But no, but the downside to that was I'd only have so much time to get my run in each day, and so I wasn't doing enough hills. Because the majority of those runs were late at night. I was at that time. I live outside Toronto, so I was working downtown. I had to take the train every day. Didn't have a lot of time, so a lot of those runs were running around my neighborhood at 10 p.m. And so no hills. And Cruel Jewel, like 31,000 elevation change. So that didn't help, but the consistency paid off in the end. So I guess the experiment worked. Yeah.
Well, after Cruel Jewel, yeah, you had some more 50Ks, 50 milers, and then I see you also did Bighorn, the Bighorn 100, which is another pretty tough race.
That one was great. Yeah.
Gorgeous
That was,
race too, from what I've seen.
oh, wow. That was so far the most scenic race I've ever done by far.
Really. And what's I think Bighorn, is that like 26,000 feet of gain?
I think it's low 20s. I think it's low 20s.
Okay.
I have to double check, but yeah.
Yeah.
Which is mainly one giant long climb.
Yeah.
I mean, right at the beginning, you do a very steep climb for it's about 1,500 feet ish.
Okay.
Maybe 2,000. And then you're basically running along. It's almost a net downhill. You drop down into a valley, and then you're climbing for the next 7 hours, which is about a 4,500 foot climb. But it's over, I think it's 18 miles or something. It stretches over.
Oh, okay.
So it's not steep. It's just long climb.
Yeah.
Climb. And what that one's known for is the mud. And so
right.
The year I did it wasn't really wet. It had its sections that are wet every year as you get near the top, because there's a lot of snow, especially near the top. It's all snow at the top.
Right.
And so leading up to that is tons of slush and just cold water that you got to walk through. There's no way around it. And so the key thing there is the aid station at the bottom. Make sure you have a pair of shoes there for the way back to put on. There's no pair of shoes at the top because you're going to come back down the same way. It's an out and back. So
okay.
But yeah, the scenic that was so beautiful, that course. It was phenomenal. And so
yeah.
Most races I would never do again. I mean, I usually just do one destination race per year, but that one I wouldn't mind heading back to actually. Once I check a bunch of things off first, but
and that was just in 2022.
That was the last 100 I did actually. Last year I was supposed to do Grindstone in 2023, and I still play soccer and keep injuring myself. I got injured playing soccer.
Oh no,
not too bad. I pulled my hamstring pretty badly though a few weeks before Grindstone. And so not a big deal because Bighorn was my qualifier for Hard Rock for 2 years.
Okay.
And so I deferred Grindstone to 2024.
Okay.
And so 2024, I was supposed to do Eastern States, which is Western, not a Hard Rock qualifier.
Right.
It wound up canceled. And then Grindstone, I actually got injured very badly 2 weeks before Grindstone and had to pull out a Grindstone.
Oh no.
So I had no qualifiers for this year. But
would you mind me asking what was the injury?
Oh, I very dirty player kicked me in the back. I fell off a guy between him and the ball, and he kicked me in the lower back. And so I'm still seeing the doctor about it. Actually, I couldn't bend over for 2 weeks, and and so it was nasty, and it was too bad because I had gone that whole season with no injuries. We thought the season was over. This was we lost in the semis, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, we find out we have one final game. It's a consolation game. It means nothing. It's 2 weeks before Grindstone, so I thought I'll go out. I'll just play limited minutes and have fun. I don't want to get injured. And then this was probably the dirtiest team we'd ever played. So yeah, too bad. So it totally just one kick changed the trajectory of me being in the lotteries, what races I can do, everything. So
man, but, this isn't just like little pickup games. These are league play. It sounds like
it's league play, and it's recreational though. It's not like not high level, but guys take it very seriously.
Yeah.
So this age group is 35 and up. I'm 50 now, and so this is 35 and up, and so a lot of the guys on my team are pushing 50 also. But But yeah, no, it's just for fun. It's a great group of guys. It's just so we can all get together and go for beers after. It's probably the main reason we all still play. But my wife keeps telling me to stop because there's been a few times where it's gotten in the way of races, and so I need to. I don't want to pick one or the other. I like doing both. So
sure,
we'll see. If I get into Hard Rock, I might take that year off. We'll see.
Yeah. I can see that. As so many years. With I guess now you're in your 10th year coming up to the Hard Rock. So you want to put some effort on that or some focus on that for sure.
So just
looking back over the, I think you said 11 100 milers that you've done.
Yeah.
Which one sticks out as like your favorite? I know you said Bighorn is probably the most scenic, but which one sticks out as like your just overall favorite experience?
Favorite experience would still have to be Hurt, just because it was the first one.
Yeah.
And even going back, that has a community around it where it's a really, really awesome atmosphere there. It's not like some of the races that are really getting big now, where it's it's that grassroots small race feeling there. They only let 125-ish people, I think, do it. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's not huge, but No, and I still know some people who go back multiple times and stuff
Oh
involved
yeah.
there. So yeah, I might actually throw my name. Next year will be 15 years from the year I did it,
Oh,
20.
that'd be cool.
And so
That'd be cool.
maybe I'll throw my name in the lottery for next year and see what happens. But yeah, I'd probably say that. I mean, for that, and then for the experience, even Western was just a great experience. It's just seeing all the other big name runners and stuff there, and we stayed right in the village. So my room was back then. They did the whole pre-race briefing and everything out on the lawn, which was right behind my room, which was great. And I was a few 20, maybe 200 yards from the start line. So
Oh
I
wow.
forgot my lamp, had to run back, which you don't really need. I wasn't sure whether to bring a light or not, but at the beginning you're in the dark. But if I remember right, the ski lights were on,
They
and
usually are, at least now.
it gets light out in 20 minutes anyway. So I
Yeah.
brought a tiny flashlight along. Yeah, I remember at the top of the first hill, I asked a volunteer to put it in my backpack for me because I couldn't reach it. And you don't really need it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
had my wife run back to the room to grab the light for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, not
But yeah,
to. No, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say that's probably one of the best experiences still.
Okay.
The race didn't go how I would like it to. I did finish, but
Sure.
the actual experience of the whole race and all everything
Yeah.
that comes along with it, staying in the village and stuff, that was really fun.
Okay. Well, then the opposite of that, if you don't mind saying, maybe your least favorite experience or least favorite 100-mile race that you've done so far.
Let's see, least favorite.
And it can be for any reason.
Well, probably I don't know if I'd call this my least favorite. Oil Creek in Pennsylvania. I lost and added 10 miles to it.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So that one you do 3 50K loops and then this little 12K loop at the end.
Okay.
And I was running with a buddy. After the first 50K loop, you're supposed to turn right, go back to the start finish, and then start another loop. But when you start, you're in the dark. When you finish that loop, it's light out. It looks like a totally different place. We were chatting and we turned and started the loop again without going back to the start finish.
Oh
And
no.
so we ran 6 miles till we got to the next aid station and realized what happened. And then there's this paved cycling path that cuts through the middle of the park. We took the paved cycling path, slight uphill, which was horrible, for 4 miles back to where we went off course. And so it added 10 miles. And so,
Oh
but
man.
pros and cons, so that was the farthest I'd ever run at that point. That was only my second race, my second 100.
Okay.
That was still in 2011. And so I wound up with doing 110 miles in the end. And so
Oh man.
so I don't know if that would be my worst experience, but no, maybe Cruel Jewel, because I wasn't in the shape I wanted to be in for it. And and if you do Cruel Jewel, it's mentally it's tough because it doesn't have a lot of different sections the way a lot of other races do. Like you do something like Western where it's constantly changing from the like Cal Street to the valleys to the escarpment at the beginning. Very, very different sections, which is really fun to go through point to point. Cruel Jewel, it's out and back, and the whole race felt like the same. You go through one little town at one point,
Yeah.
and you turn around at this camp. Other than that, everything looked the same to me. And so mentally, it was tough being a race that far
Right.
and that long, and not seeing changes. Even when you're up high, you're still in trees and stuff. You don't really get a view, and so it's a mental challenge, that one, I think. So
Yeah, I always hear too I think I don't know if it's the last 6 miles, but obviously, it's a 106-mile race and there's like
Yeah.
a 3-mile out and back to an aid station that's like literally doesn't serve a purpose other than to make runners go further and have another
that's
mental
all.
challenge.
I don't know. I don't know if the sports has changed at all since then or not. But excuse me, there's a little loop you do before the turnaround. They make you do this little loop just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
And there's another section where you do an out and back in the middle of the course just to add distance.
Yeah. Hey, it's cruel Jewel,
Yeah, but anyway, that's part of the challenge, though.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, looking into this year, 2025, you have some pretty cool races. You mentioned you have the Hellbender is going to be your Hard Rock qualifier.
Yeah, look forward to that one.
That's in May.
Yep.
But coming up here in less than a month, on February 8th, you have the Outlaw 135.
Yeah, that one scared me for years, and I finally bit the bullet and just signed up. More the logistics, because once I was trying to think, once I was estimating when I might finish, I'm going to get back to my car, and it's going to be cold. There's nowhere to go. But that one, so it's in southeastern Oklahoma, early February. And so looking at past years, it could be, I'm in Celsius, so it could be up to -10 and snow, or it could be just above freezing up to like +10.
Yeah.
It can really fluctuate.
It's going to be cold though.
It's going to be cold. Lots of water crossings you can't avoid. So wet feet. And now they actually changed the course. So the way the course was, and I'm still going to have the same problem with this one, is it used to be a 13-mile southern loop, they called it, and then a 7-mile northern loop.
Okay.
So it makes up a 20-mile course, basically.
Right.
Excuse me.
And so you just do a couple of loops of that.
So you do that 5 times. And then if you're doing 135, you do the 7-mile loop 5 times. So the tricky part would be they allow you, and Hurt does this as well, they allow you to drop and take a shorter distance. So if you sign up for 135, things aren't going well, you can stop at 100. And that's going to be so tempting because you're going to be cold, wet feet, everything else. It's a very technical, rocky course.
Yeah.
Lots of water crossings.
I don't see that being a challenge for you, though. I think you're going to
I'm in Canada, so I'm not worried about the temperature and stuff. Weirdly, whenever I do a race like this, I hope the weather goes bad because I'm fine with it. But yeah, it's going to be tough because you're allowed to drop. You're allowed to get your buckle for 100. Sure. There's no benefit to doing the next 35. It doesn't accomplish anything. I'll have my hard rock qualifier. I actually need 100 because I didn't do any last year.
Is the 100 the qualifier for hard rock, not the 135, or they both are?
No, this isn't a hard rock qualifier.
Okay.
I need to have 100 done before May to do Hellbender. Hellbender, you need to do any 100. And so one of the nice things about Hellbender, if you don't have one, you can run it on your own and just show them the data, which is cool. So that's my last resort. But so I picked this one because it's a few months before.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So once I get my 100, that gets me into Hellbender. Yeah, not hard rock.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And so there's no benefit to doing the next 35. So mentally, I'm kind of anticipating the challenge that I'm going to reach. Now, they did move the course just a few weeks ago. It's always been in this Robbers Cave State Park, which is some cave that I think Billy the Kid and some cowboys hid out in or something. That's some history.
Cool.
But the race organization, which hosts a bunch of races in the area, they're having some dispute with the state park about fees, and they said it's not financially viable to hold it there anymore.
Oh, wow.
So they just moved it literally a few weeks ago. It's only 20 minutes up the road, it looks like, on a 4x4 trail. And so I got to watch the rest of the video. They did put out like a half-an-hour video showing the course. So I think it's going to be very similar.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how the loops are going to work. It's a 9-mile southern loop and a 4-mile northern loop. So I think the 100-milers will do that 8 times. I'm not clear on the 135 what the plan is, but
interesting.
It might wind up being 134, 136, 137. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you know what the expected elevation gain would be for the 135?
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's well, for 135, I did the math. It's going to be roughly 22,000.
Okay.
Because they did post it for 100, they said it's going to be around 16,000.
Okay.
So if you extrapolate that out another 35 miles, ballpark 22,000.
Okay.
Very rocky though, technical.
Yeah.
And water crossing. So that'll be the tricky part.
And now leading up to this one, I've noticed on Instagram you were doing another run streak.
Yeah.
You were running
like
10K a day, I think.
Yeah. So I was through the fall. I hadn't run much. And then month of December, I actually almost didn't run at all in November.
Oh, wow.
And so and I hadn't signed up yet either. Finally, I decided, are you going to do this or not? So I signed up on December 1st. And I decided, all right, I'm going to do a minimum 10K a day. And so near the beginning, just to get myself used to it, it was 10K a day, but some of the days trying to fit it in with work and stuff, that's the hardest part, is honestly just fitting it in. So some days I do a 5K trail in the morning, and then in the evening I would do 5K road. So a bunch of the early days it was 5 and 5, always at minimum 10K though. And then a bunch of days, I'll do 12, 13, whatever, and then do longer ones on the weekends.
Okay.
So it felt great. Other than my calves started to get tight and I had to stretch them out quite a bit, but other than that, no big issues.
Yeah.
So I did it for a month. So I did it for the whole month of December. And then last week, and as you see now, I got sick. And I decided I went out at 10 p.m. one night to do a 10K when I was sick. And the next, that was stupid. I
Yeah.
haven't run much at all this week. I'm still trying to get
Yeah.
back on my feet here. And
Well,
so I want to go out and,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say tomorrow will be my first long run in quite a while. So we'll see
Okay.
how it goes.
Well, to say I saw on Instagram you did a reel. I think it was the week before you got sick, I believe. And it looks like you had done about 93K, so almost 100K volume
Yeah.
for that week.
Yeah.
So still
The
getting
numbers
pretty
add
good
up.
volume. Yeah.
And which is way more, honestly, that's way more than I usually do. I undertrain for all these races. So I've done a few hundred where I was doing 30K a week. And so,
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, they all didn't always go well, but no, I probably average most races 50K, 60K something a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Not as much as I should at all. And so yeah, so this one, if I'm doing 10K a day minimum, then it's minimum 70K and then add on whatever else. And
Right.
that's not even getting into longer runs on the weekends. I'm just starting to do that over this month. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so they should be 100K weeks, which is a big jump for me actually. But
Yeah.
as long as I'm not feeling injured, nothing's hurting. As long as I don't get sick, then I'll keep her.
Yeah.
So
Well, what kind of taper do you think you'll do for the 135?
Basically the final week. So the way I'd added it up was if I was going to do a streak, again, broken now, but I'll still pick it up and get back to it until the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
That's January 31st is a Friday. So then the race is on February 8th. So the following Saturday.
Okay.
So I'll probably run that weekend, get my last semi-long run in. And then during the week, barely anything. I'm probably going to fly out on, I think I booked my flight for Wednesday. A buddy of mine lives in Dallas, which is 4 hours south of the race. So I'm going to go there and visit for a night and then drive up to the race. And then after the race, head back down and have a nice little visit again. So,
okay. So a quick turnaround, but a lot of travel and drive. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I had to book an Airbnb that I'm not even going to be in for a few nights. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's always the hard part of the logistics of when you travel to races, or if you have crew and you're trying to find, a house big enough to house people, and it
adds up, man.
It does add up a lot.
Well,
it gets very costly.
Even just driving versus flying. So Hellbender, I was trying to decide whether to drive or fly. So it makes a big difference because the flight plus car rental,
right?
Plus, I usually wind up with an extra night or two hotel when I fly because I'll usually wind up staying near the airport the last night, something like that. If it's drivable, then it's 1 or 2 nights at a motel. I usually don't book the motel through the race. I check out.
Yeah.
So much, much cheaper.
What kind of drive would that be from where you are in Canada to Hellbender?
If I do Hellbender, I think it was about 12 hours.
Oh, okay. It's not as bad as I thought. I thought
not too bad.
Okay.
Grindstone, I did that one a few times. That was 10 hours.
Okay.
And so that's doable. You can do it in a day. Hellbender, yeah. What I might do with something like that is stop along the way and maybe stop for a night just so I'm fresh.
Right. Now you mentioned car rental. Do you typically rent your cars through like one of the regular agencies? Yeah.
I just check whatever the rates are. I'm actually
maybe
a travel agent, so I look around for some deals. But
I'd say maybe a little tip for our viewers out there if they're not aware of it. Whenever I travel and go places, whether it's a vacation or race or whatever, I always end up booking a car through Turo, Turo.
Oh yeah,
it's an app you can download, and it's basically like Airbnb but for cars. So it's people that rent you their own private vehicle, and it has to meet certain standards. But like whenever I've traveled, like I went to Idaho, me and my buddy, we rented a Subaru during the race. When I went to Florida on a family vacation, we rented a minivan that fit my whole family, and it was like for a whole week. It ended up being like $400 less than the cheapest rate I could find from like Enterprise.
Wow.
It was crazy. So check out Turo. I'm not, obviously no sponsor or anything like that, but I'm a big believer. I always book through there now, and it saves me a lot of money. And when I went to the No Business 100 in 2023, I think it was, we rented a Mercedes G-Class SUV. Nice. And it was like it was cheaper than a economy sedan I could have gotten from the cheapest rental car place. So,
nice.
Check it out. Might save somebody. Who knows?
Yeah. You don't need something nice for a race. It's like the hotels. I stay in like Super 8s and stuff. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I just need a bed.
Exactly. I just need a bed and a shower.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah. Well, what this will be one. So let's see here. 135. So this will be the longest distance you've run, right? Because you won.
Yeah, it was Fat Dog. Yep. It was always Oil Creek at 110 until I did Fat Dog, so 122.5, and then this one. Yeah, 135. As long as I don't stop at 100 and keep going, then for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, this one's
Yeah.
always kind of scared me, which so I'm glad I finally signed up to get her done.
Yeah.
But
Well, are you going to be filming during these coming races and try to get something for YouTube maybe?
I'm gonna try. So what I've noticed is, especially on my runs lately, you see me post reels and stuff. The
Right.
GoPro dies so fast in the cold,
Oh yeah.
and so what I found myself doing, it goes down to zero and I can't record. I take out the battery and put it in my hand in my glove. Then I
Yep.
put the GoPro in my other glove, let it warm up, plug it back in. Now it's back to 60% for a few minutes. So yeah, so I'm going to attempt to film something, and then
It's up at the 135 because that's gonna be cold.
yeah, well, it depends on the temperature. Once it's above freezing, it's okay. If it goes, especially at night below freezing,
Okay.
usually I have a GoPro in a pocket on front of my vest,
Right.
just freeze there. So I'll have to put it in a pocket in my coat, keep it warm. So yeah, I'll get
Which
something for sure.
which GoPro are you using?
Oh, it's ancient. Jeez, I got a 7.
Oh, 7. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't know, the newer ones, I think it was the 10, I
yeah.
think might be the first year that had the Enduro battery, which is
Oh,
much better in the cold. Like it lasts in the cold so much better.
okay. I've
So
got
I
like
don't
4 batteries I bring, but the cold really kills them. So
oh yeah, like when I had my GoPro 9, yeah, I couldn't, if I was running here in the springs or even back when I lived in Tennessee in the wintertime, it would do the exact same thing.
yeah.
I'd have it in my Solomon front pocket and then it would freeze and shut down. It was too cold. Couldn't record anything. So
Oh, so we'll see. I
yeah.
mean, I bring a few others. I have an Insta 360 I bring sometimes, but
Oh, nice.
that's a problem with that one is it's the editing takes me forever because
Yeah,
if you know, yeah, with 360, while you're editing, you can look 360 degrees. With GoPro, whatever I point at is what I filmed. I just got to time it.
exactly.
And it's if I were to do a whole race with a 360, it would take me 3 years to edit it. There's just too
Oh
many
yeah.
options. And so I prefer the GoPro, and I've dropped it and stuff like that. It's so durable.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll just
definitely. Yeah,
use that.
GoPro's the best. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, when you get into hard rock,
Mhm.
hopefully that would be 2026 is the year you think you should have about a 75% chance. Is that right?
Yeah, if I am in the lottery in 2025 for 2026. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, hopefully you get in, and if so, definitely shoot me a little note. Let me know because I don't live too far from Hard Rock,
Oh,
and
well, nice. Yeah.
I think I'm only about maybe 4 hours from some of the course, depending on
Okay.
where. But I plan to go over there this year, hopefully, and
Good.
just volunteer, hang out,
Yeah.
be a part of it, see
Oh,
the
it'd be great I'd
just
love to
be
go
there.
just to, yeah, experience it. But
Yeah, definitely.
we'll see. I don't know how the altitude's going to hit me. In 2012, I DNF'd Leadville with altitude sickness.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was bad. Yeah. And
Oh,
so we'll see how Hard Rock goes for me because
have you done any other I mean, I know obviously, you've done some races in the 10, 11,000 range, but have you done
yeah,
anything other than
no,
Leadville over 12?
no. So we'll see. Hard Rock might not agree with me at all,
Interesting.
but yeah, the funny thing is Leadville's actually average altitude is actually higher than Hard Rock's. It's just you're only
Really?
going up and down the main one. Yeah, because Hard Rock
Yeah.
drops down farther a few times, right?
Yeah.
Ouray and Silverton, and even Telluride, you're going down to 7-ish.
Really? Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
it's an odd factor, but obviously very different race. Doesn't have the same climbs and everything. But
No.
no, Leadville. When I did Leadville back then, they used to weigh you, and actually it wasn't even a lottery back then, which was the nicest part of it. You sign up,
Nice.
you're in. That's done. I
Wait,
can't.
what year did you say you did it?
That was 2012,
So that was before Lifetime bought it then as
the
well.
year before.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
Lifetime. I had some friends that went back next year after Lifetime bought it, and it was not the same experience. Jeez.
No.
But no, they weigh you at Winfield after 50 miles to make sure you
Okay.
haven't lost too much weight. So when they weighed me
Interesting.
at Winfield, I'd gained 7 pounds. And
Oh,
so
wow.
had pulmonary edema. I was retaining all of my fluids. And because I'd noticed I was wearing a belt. I didn't wear a vest. I used to wear a belt, and I had a gut hanging over my belt. Like I was in wicked shape back then. I don't have a gut. My watch got really tight and my neck started getting big.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
so then I kept going. And then after 75 miles, I got lost on the road portion. I
Oh,
on the wrong road. I'm lightheaded by now. I don't know what's going on. And so my wife found me, thank goodness, because I'm wandering around these roads. I'd switched my headlamp onto strobe so I could see miles away across the fields. I could see headlights, but nowhere near me. So by now, flurries are coming down. I'm soaking wet with sweat, and I can hear coyotes all around me. and a car comes along, and it's my wife looking for me at 3.
Oh my gosh.
So that was after 75 miles, I guess. And yeah, I was in bad shape. They took me to the medical tent and put me on oxygen. They tried to weigh me, and it probably would have been at least 10 pounds heavier at that point. But,
oh my gosh. Wow.
But their scales weren't working, or I broke them, one or the other. So I was interested to see what my weight would have been by then.
I'm curious. They obviously don't weigh people now. I wonder if they stopped that when Lifetime took over, because I've not heard of the weighing thing at Leadville before. That's interesting.
Stopped it after me. I don't know, but yeah, no, a few races used to do that and then stopped doing it. It was to make sure you didn't lose too much weight, but you're not going to lose it all at Leadville.
Did they do that at States? 'Cause I've always seen that in videos. Yep. They weigh you at States.
They did when I did it. Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, I remember you stand on it, and then the person yells out your weight. Somebody else writes it down, and there's a guy behind me. I step off of it, and the next guy gets down, and I hear 140. I'm like, what? Like, I wish I could run at 140. Jeez. But yeah, I think they weighed us. Twice along the course. That one, I think, was almost more for research also, though. That's why they weighed twice. At States, there was something we signed. There's some big research project they're doing on all the runners.
Yeah.
I forget who was actually doing it, but I think that's what the purpose of that one was.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they weigh you at I'm fairly certain it's Forest Hill. They weigh, and then I think there's another one. It's Michigan.
Maybe it was Michigan or Last Chance. Somewhere earlier on is where they weighed me, but
yeah. Okay.
Hard to remember now. That was a while ago.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I actually got back into Western in after Bighorn. 2023.
Oh, really?
I got back in, but I had a non-running related medical issue, and the doctor asked me not to train for it, which turned out to be nothing in the end. Long story. Totally nothing. It was as a precaution. He asked me not to train, and I had to pull out. So that was 10 years. The first year I did it. I was so stoked to go back. And I couldn't train for it, so I had to pull out.
And you weren't able to like defer or anything? You had to just withdraw?
Western, no. I did pull out early enough that it didn't change my lottery status. Going forward.
That's good.
Yeah. So, but no.
Tickets will you have, or
for Western? Oh, I blacked out now. I don't know.
If you've been in that many years, it's probably got to be at least
quite a few.
64, probably something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Because it'll be more for the next one even. So
yeah.
Still, the odds aren't as high as Hard Rock being my 10th one next time, but yeah, we'll see.
God,
I'll get into one of them.
I know, right? Oh man,
but those are my priorities. Those two, and going back to Leadville to get that done. And so
yeah,
those. Well,
Leadville now pretty much is you just about have to go volunteer to get in and get those hours.
Yeah.
The entries process is crazy. And like you said, the race is not the same experience as when you ran it in 2012. It's going to be vastly different.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
I ran it in 23 and, finished it, had an okay race, threw up once, or twice at May Queen, on the way back in. But yeah, it's just a different scene now with Lifetime and the way it's operated. So it's still a great race. But
well, that's similar to Grindstone. When I did Grindstone, it wasn't UTMB yet,
right?
And so I've heard mixed reviews of how things changed after that. But yeah, so and the course has changed, obviously,
right? But, yep, yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if I'll get back there. I've done it twice, so it's I think that one's off the list.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, it's been a lot of fun having you on, man. I know you were a little under the weather still, and I appreciate you, pushing through and doing the interview, even though you got some. I
got the sniffles. I'm running for a Kleenex as soon as we're done here. Jeez.
Hopefully you get feeling better. You can get out and do that long run tomorrow and continue or start that streak over and keep going. And I'm definitely going to be curious to see how the 135 goes for you, and then get into Hellbender. Hopefully, do that, and hopefully you get into Hard Rock. I'd love to see you out here, and
hopefully next year. Person. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be great. Well, I appreciate
nice chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Morgan.
All right, take care, Steven.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Adventure Jogger, please consider joining our Patreon, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for more content like this. Without your continued support, we would not be able to produce this type of content. So thank you so much to everyone that has listened, followed along, subscribed, liked, commented, you name it, donated on Patreon. Thank you.